Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, Business Innovators Radio listeners. This is your host, Andy Curry, and today I am excited to bring to you Brian Moran. Brian has been speaking professionally for 20 years plus, and the content he speaks on is your 12-week year. And he speaks in the U.S. and internationally. He is from Michigan, and he has written a book that is on the New York Times bestseller, and it is called The 12-Week Year. Brian, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Andy. Appreciate it.
We're excited to have you here. Now, Brian, would you please tell us about your speaking business? Let's let the listeners know who you're talking to, what you're doing for them, what you're teaching them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I speak to quite a diverse audience, from small groups to, thousands of folks. And it's always on the 12-week year. So whether it's a group of entrepreneurs or whether it's in a corporate setting, it's the concept of the 12-week year, which is all about how to accomplish more of what you want faster. In fact, the subtitle on our book is How to Accomplish More in 12 Weeks Than Most Do in 12 Months. So everything I do at the 12-week year is designed around that. How do you perform your best? How do you get more of what you want in the areas that matter to you? And so whether that's a 50-minute keynote, a half-day or full-day training, that's what that whole topic is about.
I could use that book and your speech.
Great. I'll send you a copy.
That'd be fantastic. The work that I do, I am on the internet constantly, and it is so, what's the word? There's distracting. There's too many distractions. And I would imagine in your speaking, you talk to people about overcoming distractions, don't you?
Well, that's the reality of life, yeah. It's not so much, I don't know if it's overcoming them as it is, in spite of all the distractions, getting the important stuff done. Because I think that for some there is this notion that somehow I'm going to start to eliminate all that stuff, and I don't think that's the reality. The way to be effective is realizing that exists. In spite of that, how do I carve out time for what really matters? And the first thing in that, Andy, is knowing what really matters.
Right.
So that you can separate out what matters from the noise. And then begin to align your time more intentionally with what matters. Because there was a time when I thought someday I'm going to be able to eliminate all the interruptions and the distractions, and I realized that's not a reality. And in fact, with technology and the pace of change and the pace of life, it seems like there's more and more of that stuff, not less and less. So it becomes even more critical that you know what matters and that you're able to align your time to those things, and then kind of let the rest of the day fill in, if you will, if that makes any sense.
Definitely. One of the questions I would think someone would ask is, how do you distinguish what matters versus what seems to matter, which is actually busy work? How do you answer that?
Yeah, so if you read our book, there's a set of disciplines that are fundamental to high performance, and the first thing is knowing what you want. So in sorting out what matters, the first thing is, what do you want? What do you want your life to look like 3 years from today? And then what does your career, your business, your practice need to look like to align and enable that? So most of the vision work that people do, it centers around their business, where with the 12-week year, we don't start there. We start with life, because business is just part of life, right? And then you align the business. So it starts with, what do you want in life? And then we bring that near term, set a 12-week goal that aligns with that, right? So where do I need to be in the 12 weeks so I'm standing that ground, and build out what we would call the critical few tactics, or the tactical plan, the actions. So the first thing I need to know is, what do I want to make happen? The next thing is, what matters most to make that happen? That's really the tactical plan. And without that, it's really difficult, because without something like that, day to day, I'm pulled into stuff that may or may not be effective and may or may not be meaningful. But it's really the combination of those two pieces. One, knowing what it is I want to create in my life, And two, then sorting out from a tactical standpoint, what are the critical few, what matters most. Then the challenge becomes, okay, how do I use that over the next 12 weeks to make decisions about what I engage with, what I don't engage with, that intentionality piece.
Fascinating. Now, when you're giving talks, what's the percentage of people who are, say, entrepreneurs versus those who work for a business? I mean, how does your listener audience kind of,
how does it segment? How does it sort out?
Segment. That's the word.
It really depends on the talk. I might be giving a talk to Medtronic where everyone there is a W-2 employee, or I might be giving a talk to a group at Mass Mutual where they're all 1099. So in a sense, they're with a company, but they're still entrepreneurs. Or it may be a completely entrepreneurial group. So what I found, Andy, is at one level that doesn't matter. What matters is, do people want to get better?
Right.
Whether you're in a W-2 environment, whether you own your own business, or whether it's a hybrid of that, do you want to get better, and are you willing to do what it takes? And that's the commonality of any audience I speak to, regardless of how they're structured within the organization.
Where do you think you are making the most impact as far as your segments that you speak to?
Well, we're probably doing it more in a 1099 environment just because that's more of what I speak to.
Okay.
Do a lot of work in financial services, and most of those folks are 1099, so they're aligned with an organization, but in a sense they're an entrepreneur.
Right.
So we're having the greatest impact there just because that's the larger percentage of my audience.
Now, Brian, how did you get started in the speaking business?
Interesting question. I was coming up through corporate America and took a position with a consulting firm. And one of the things that they did well is they did process reengineering before it was called that, but they also worked on the cultural side of things, recognizing the impact culture can have on performance. And so they had a process that was designed to begin to align cultures to high performance and shift them. And it was really a training-based process. So that's why I started training and speaking in public first. And it was internally with their clients and then kind of built from that.
Okay. And you've been doing it, you told me when we first talked, 2 decades, and it sounded like you've been actually doing it more than that. So you're certainly no newbie, that's for sure.
That's true. Probably longer than I care to admit. It makes me feel old when I really tally up the years.
Now, the book you wrote is called 12-Week Year.
Yep.
Talk about your book a little bit. Tell us.
So the premise of the book and everything we do was this realization I had that people don't lack for ideas, that there's great ideas out there. That's not the crux of the matter. The breakdown, the issue standing between where people are at and what they want to achieve in their life typically isn't another idea or that they don't know what to do. It's that they're not consistently doing it. Give you an idea. 63% of Americans statistically are overweight or obese. Now, do you think that's because they don't know how to be in better shape, right? Do you think it's because we don't have enough diet books out there or exercise books out there, or enough information for people? That's not the case, right? The breakdown isn't that they don't know. The breakdown is they don't consistently do it. And that's true in most areas. In most areas, for most people, if they acted consistently on what they know, whether it be in their relationships, whether it be spiritually, whether it be physically, whether it be economically, they would accomplish more of what they want faster. And so that realization led me to really looking into it. Why, what is the crux? Why do most people struggle to execute? And started working with some fundamentals around what it takes to execute, what it takes to perform at your best. And not being perfect, but just being more consistent with it. And in that, we came across an athletic training concept called periodization. Developed in the 70s, still widely used today in a lot of sports, designed to create breakthrough performance. And my business partner, Mike Lennington, and I saw that. And we said, that has applicability for what we're doing. And in an athletic sense, what periodization is it's taking the disciplines in a particular sport and focusing on them for a period of time, 4 to 6 weeks, one discipline at a time, and then cycling through. Well, as we began to work with that wasn't applicable like that in a business setting. But what we realized was that in an annual environment, which is what most people operate in, whether they know it or not, right? They set annual goals. They might break them down quarterly and build their plans quarterly and all of that. But there's still this notion of, the hard line in the sand is at the end of the year. And in that environment, there's just too much opportunity to put things off. January rolls around, people are all excited, going to have their best year ever. Get to the end of January, most people are behind on their goals, and yet nobody's worried. And it's because, Andy, there's this thinking that says, I got plenty of time to catch up. And we realized that if we're going to help people perform at their best, we had to get out of that mindset. So that's where we adapted from the athletic training process to go beyond training to focus on the fundamentals that drive income and life balance. And that's where the 12-week year was born, getting out of that annualized environment. And so our clients work in the context of every 12 weeks as a year. And there aren't 4 of those in the year. That's back to annualized thinking. The 12 weeks is the year, followed by another 12-week year and another one and so on. And the more you embrace that in your thinking, the bigger impact it has on your actions, the bigger impact it has on your results. So it was really this notion of how do people execute? What keeps people from accomplishing more of what they want, which is a lack of execution, not knowledge. And then what's it take to execute, which is applying the fundamentals, but it's applying them in an environment where there's a healthy sense of urgency. And so the 12-week year was born out of that. How do we create, not the panic that you might feel at the end of a calendar year, but a healthy sense of urgency just to act more consistently day in and day out on the things that matter most.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, listening to that and knowing that you're speaking to lots of audiences, surely there's an event that you spoke at where it sticks out in your mind where you felt you really made a huge impact on the audience, or at least somebody in the audience. What comes to mind when you think about that?
Andy, I like to think that every event that happens, and I don't think that's just my ego. I mean, we follow up with our clients, and so typically we're in long-term relationships with the folks we work with, and so we see the difference. We get emails every day on how the concept has changed people's business, changed their life. And that's what's really rewarding about it is what we found. I mean, this thing's been vetted in every industry over the last 10 years or more. And if you apply it as a system, you can't help but get better.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the beauty of it. You can't help but get better. So it works equally well in your personal life. In fact, it may be easier in your personal life because there's less contingencies. But that's what's rewarding is the fact that people can take this and in 12 weeks change the course they're on. And literally, if they want, to change their life in a profound way. I mean, the average person who engages with the 12-week year, if they can measure it, and that's why we work with a lot of sales environments because it's easy to measure. The average sales rep has a 20-30% increase in the first 12 weeks. And we have thousands and thousands that have had increases of 100, 200, 300, 400%. I mean, crazy as that sounds, that's pretty typical when you apply it as a system. And so it has a profound effect. And that's what's most rewarding. So it's really about, how do you spread the word in a way that people get it and they don't get too caught up in the mechanics of it, but apply the concepts in a way that are meaningful for them because it'll have an impact.
Right. Well, when you first started speaking in your career, was this what you were speaking on initially, or did it morph into this?
No, when I first started speaking, it was through that consulting firm, and we were doing training specific to cultural change. And, ultimately everything had a bent a little bit towards execution, but it wasn't the 12-week year, and it wasn't, the core of what I'm talking about today.
Okay. And when you started speaking, at what point did you decide, this is where it's at. This is where I need to be. When did that happen?
Oh, it was a little over a dozen years ago when, just working with the concept. And now you're talking about decided the 12-week year or decided speaking?
The 12-week years information.
Yeah. So it was a little over a dozen years ago when we And everything we've done, we apply first in our own business and in my own personal life. So it wasn't like I thought this concept up and went out there and tested it with a bunch of people. First applied it in my own life, and that's where I realized it had power. And then began sharing it with clients and seeing the impact it had. Just became very passionate about, we've got an almost an obligation to share this because this can be life-changing for people. And for the ones that it's not life-changing, it can still be profound in a sense of helping them get more of what they want faster.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. I can't wait to read your book, Brian. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this interview today. It was incredibly interesting to hear, what you speak on, the information, because a lot of that hits home with me. I know I create my to-do list, and I think some of it's busy work, but I do work towards, of course, execution on what seems to be important, and I look forward to learning from you.
Yeah, great. Well, I'll get you a copy of the book, and if for any of your listeners, it's available at Amazon, all the bookstores, and if we can be of help in any way, 12weekyear.com is the website. 12weekyear.com. Everything from individual coaching to an online system that we have that helps you apply the 12-week year.
Okay, and if someone wants you to speak, do they get a hold of you through that site as well?
Yeah, or they can email Jen at 12weekyear.com, JEN at 12weekyear.com.
Okay. Well, Brian, thank you so much.
Good speaking. Awesome. Thanks for having me, Andy.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.